The main reason most people get stuck is because they don't track their progress. The reason they don't do this or you're not doing this is because you don't know how to. How do you track your progress? How do you know exactly how much you're learning? My name is Daniel Cordova, and I've helped over 560 students around the world to speak more fluently and confidently using this exact tracking progress that I'm going to show you today. Enjoy. We're going to talk about two types of learning: indirect and direct. Then I'm going to show you the different stages of memory, because this is how you are going to determine how much you're learning, how to track your progress exactly. And then I'm going to show you how to allocate, right? How to put your phrases from your short-term memory to your long-term memory with our signature strategy that we're going to use here, right? We're going to use ChatGPT. We're going to use different methods. So I'm so excited to teach you this to my students. Let's go here and start with talking about indirect versus direct. What's the difference? Indirect method is consuming information, movies, music, conversation, right? Now, a lot of people go to one extreme and they say, oh, you should only consume. No, that's important, but you also need direct, which includes taking classes, one-to-one, or mini group, right? Mini group, meaning 3 to 5 students in a class that are in your level with a native teacher. One-to-one is personalized. I prefer a hybrid method where you get both one-to-one personal classes and also mini group. If you can do this, this will 20 times your progress. Also, having a vocabulary notebook, writing what you learn, keeping track of what you learn, and using apps like Elsa and Link, right? I'm not a big fan of apps, but if you can complement your strategy with apps, that's even better, right? And I'll talk to you about how you can do that too. But the idea is to combine everything together. This is what you need if you want to track your progress. And you think about it, is it important to track your progress? It is. Of course, it's better if someone can do it for you. So for example, for our students in the DC vocabulary course, we track their progress, and I'll talk to you about that in a few moments, but we track their progress, exactly how much they're learning per month, how many phrases they're memorizing. We track all of that for them so that they don't have to worry about that. They can just focus on learning. We have a platform where they can see what they haven't studied, what they've learned, what they recognize, but that's obviously that's going to help you 100 times more. But if you don't have that, you also need to learn how you can track your progress yourself, which is what I'm going to talk to you about in this video. So let's first talk about how it works. How does memory work? Well, first, when you encounter or when you see a phrase, an idiom, or a structure, a piece of grammar, first it's new, right? And we can see what I'm talking about here, right? Something is first new, and this means that this is the first time you've seen it. You've never used the phrase, and context doesn't help, right? Even if you see it in context, this especially happens with idioms, with a specific type of idiom. There's different types of idioms, by the way, and if you want to know what the different types of idioms are, because you need to have a strategy, a different strategy for each different type of idiom. And you can watch that in the video that I'm linking here about idioms. But the point is, sometimes context doesn't help. That's something that is new. Now, the reason that a lot of people don't track their progress, or they're not able to, is because they don't know how to do it. They don't know what the difference between new, recognized, familiar, or learned is. Now, step 1 to tracking your progress is understanding in which stage, en cuál estado of learning and memory a specific phrase, idiom, phrasal verb is in. Is it in new? Is it recognized? Is it familiar? Or is it learned, right? So I'm going to teach you in this video how to go from new to recognized to familiar to learned. But first, let's look at the differences. When something is recognized, that means you've seen it before, but you don't know exactly how to use it. And I'm sure this has happened to you. Maybe you're on your phone, right? And you see an idiom. And you're like, oh, I've learned an idiom, right? And then you go back to watching Netflix or putting things on Netflix, and you see the phrase in the subtitles or the idiom or the phrasal verb. You recognize it. Now, a lot of students think, I learned it. No, you didn't. You recognized it. That's different. And that's why a lot of students don't know what their progress is, right? Maybe you have a journal, you write things down, but then you get tired and then you never review it, right? Now, that's recognized. Familiar means that you can make 3 or 5 sentences writing it down with a few mistakes. That's when something is familiar, you see? And that's when having a teacher helps, because they can correct those sentences, or having someone to correct your sentences is important. But that's when you know, oh, it's familiar, right? It's not new, it's not recognized, it's familiar. You can formulate 3 or 5 sentences. And when something is learned, that means you can use it without thinking too much. You can just, if I tell you, give me a sentence with the phrasal verb put out, right? Which means to turn off the fire, put out the fire. And you just say, hey, put out the fire. You more or less have learned it. Now there's another stage after this, right? Which means that you've dominated it, but we're just focusing on these 4 right now, right? And by the way, I didn't invent this. This is just an observation, right? There's a linguist, Steve Kaufman, who's behind the Link app, by the way, Link, who he invented that app. He uses this kind of method, and he's inspired this method for people to use it too. All right, so we've seen new, recognized, familiar, and learned. But how can we go from new to recognized, from recognized to familiar, and from familiar to learned? Well, that's what I'm going to show you right now. What's the strategy? Well, to go from new to recognized, you need to absorb the language, consume it indirectly, right? This is what we were talking about here: movies, music, conversation, Instagram, etc. That's how you go from new to recognized. And the strategy is absorb 5 to 10 phrasal verbs or idioms per day. Again, the key word here is absorb. You're not learning it, so don't worry about memorizing every aspect of it, because you're going to lose motivation. You're absorbing it. Your mind is like a sponge. You need to absorb it before you learn it. Okay. Now, you can do that on Instagram with the post. You can save it. Right? If you look at my post, on my Instagram account, I have some posts where I posted one recently, where if you go to my page, you see here, this one here, right? Save it. You can save this post, etc., right? And that way you already have like 7 phrasal verbs for the week, for the day. That's one way of doing it. The 1x5 rule, what is that? 1x5 means that for every 5 phrasal verbs that you learn, or idioms, you should learn 1 structure or 1 piece of grammar, right? That's what we do in my course, right? We have it all prepared for our students. Let me show you an example, because that can inspire you to do the same thing. Or if you want someone to do it for you, right, that we do that for our students, so that you can concentrate just on learning. If you want to, or are interested in having everything done for you, click the link down below and schedule a demo call with me or my assistant, and we can show you how everything works. And if you qualify, you can join our course. So if that's something you're interested in, schedule a demo call. Demo means demonstration call. We can demonstrate how things work for you, and that way we can see if you qualify. And if so, we'll give you all the details, the prices, the schedules, etc. So just to give you an example of this week's information or material, we have 1 grammar point, right, for the class. Not 6, not 7, no. 1 grammar point and 1 specific subject. In this case is asking for a raise at work. That's the focus of this class. We get 1 piece of grammar and we make sure that the students really understand it. I wouldn't have wanted to, bada bing, bada boom. Right? We show them the definition, detailed definition, which means that you're communicating that you're happy that you didn't make a decision. Right? So we make sure that they understand the definition. We give them a scenario, right? Let's say you were invited to a party last week, but you didn't go. Later, you heard the party wasn't enjoyable. You're like, whew, I wouldn't have wanted to go anyway, right? Here you're expressing relief about a past event that you chose not to participate in. See? So that's the structure. I wouldn't have wanted to. So we're making sure they understand the scenario. Then there's sentence examples. I wouldn't have wanted to ask for a raise during the company's layoffs. I wouldn't have wanted to approach my boss about a raise right after the big client meeting. So it's something you didn't do and you're happy about it. Now that the students understand it, we go to the meat of the class, which are idioms. Drive a hard bargain. We teach it to them, right? Personal experience. Meet halfway. That's another idiom. Then we have sweeten the deal. So we have all these idioms, 3 or 5 idioms, but only 1 structure. You cannot track your progress if you have 5 structures per day. No. Focus on 1 structure for the week and 5 idioms or phrasal verbs per day. Absorb them. That's how you go from new to recognized, right? Now, how do you go from recognized, right? Recognized to familiar. Remember, the point is going from new to learned. So I'm showing you step by step how to go from new to recognized, from recognized to familiar, from familiar to learned. So we already saw from new to recognized. But how do we go from recognized to familiar? There's something called the recency illusion, right? This was discovered by Arnold Zwicky. And this is something you've probably heard about. And the recency illusion is, let's say I tell you, think about the color blue. And really think about the color blue. And I say blue 10 times. Blue, 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 blue. When you go out to the street, you're going to focus a lot on blue. You're going to see, oh, a blue shirt, a blue car. And this doesn't mean that the color blue was never there. It was always there. The sky is blue. The ocean is blue. People wear blue all the time. I have blue on here. But now, because of the recency illusion, you see it now. It's something recent that you've heard. So now you're focused on it. Why am I saying this? Because now that you have absorbed 5 or 10 phrasal verbs per day with 1 structure for the week, you're going to watch several movies in English with subtitles or without subtitles. Depends on your level, right? Maybe you can start with subtitles in the beginning. Listen to audio dramas or podcasts in English, and you will hear what you've learned. I guarantee you. And it's not because it's, oh, magic. No, it's because of the recency illusion. Since you're absorbing so many phrasal verbs per day, your brain is going to be focused on understanding and absorbing them. So I guarantee you, if you do this, you will hear the phrasal verbs, the idioms, the structure in these podcasts. And that's when you're recognizing it. And now that you feel more confident, again, it doesn't mean you've learned it. No, it's still familiar. In this case, now it's familiar. Because you've recognized it, and now it's becoming more familiar. Now you can start writing sentences with these phrases. Again, it helps to have a teacher or a personal fluency coach, which is what my students get. They get their personal fluency coach so that they can have something more structured for them, right? Every 2 weeks, you see how it says audio dramas or podcasts? Well, we give our students, with this premium course that we have, every 2 weeks, material specifically for them based on their needs and their likes, their hobbies, their goals. So they don't have to think about it too much. Everything is done for them, right? So That's something that is, if you want to understand that more, that's something you can do. Okay, but now that we have this, how do we go from familiar to learned, right? Because the whole point is to go from new to learned. Well, to do it by yourself, you can do this. How? You need to use ChatGPT. This is going to make everything much easier. But if you don't have ChatGPT, you can do it by yourself. ChatGPT, let me show you what it is here. They have a free version. And it's basically something that you tell it to do something and it will do it for you, right? So you can tell it, make me a recipe with lasagna, for lasagna, and it'll make you a recipe, right? So I have the command that you will give to ChatGPT. So you can just copy and paste it, right? You're going to tell ChatGPT, please create 5 sentences with each of the phrasal verbs or idioms I type. I want the Spanish translation as well. If you don't speak Spanish, put your native language here, right? Turkish, etc., right? Then create a short story only in English about, and you can choose the theme. It can be about suspense, mystery, drama. And use each phrasal verb, structure, or idiom twice and put them in bold letters. And then you're going to put the phrasal verbs and idioms that you have. So let's, for example, say that you have these: branch out, drill down, iron out, scale up, etc. You're going to put them here. And this is where you're going to put it on ChatGPT. And ChatGPT will create a story for you. So you're going to copy it, just to show you an example, right? Paste it. Again, I'm telling it, create 5 sentences with each phrasal verb or idioms I type. I want the Spanish translation as well. Then create a short story in English about suspense. And use each phrasal verb twice and put it in bold letters. So that way you know where they are. And then here are the phrasal verbs. Click. And ChatGPT gives me the sentences in English and in Spanish. Again, it can be in your language, Turkish, etc. And it gives you 5 sentence examples for each. You're going to read this out loud. This is how you learn your phrases in context, right? Go on about, run through. So we have all these here. Then it gives you the story with the phrasal verbs and idioms in dark. You're going to read this as well. And on the weekend, you can read this. This is how you learn it. Again, if you don't have ChatGPT, you can do it yourself. You yourself can create 5 sentences and a story. So what have we seen so far, my students? The idea to track your progress is to go from new, something you've never seen before, and context doesn't help, to learned, which means you can use it without thinking too much. And the way you do this is to go step by step and to see your progress, to go from new to recognized to familiar, from familiar to learned. And this is something you can do every day. And you will see progress. You will track your progress. Again, my students, I hope you enjoyed this free masterclass because you can do this yourself. You can. And you will see progress. But if you want to see progress 30, 40, 50 times faster, again, we do everything for you in my course, as I show you here with this vocab tracker. The idea is to make this as relaxed as possible for the student. That's the whole idea. We don't want the students to think about what they need to do. All of this tracking, you can do it yourself, but it might slow you down because it's too much. So we do it for our students. And besides that, we have a speech analyzer. So this is a speech analyzer. It's a button that the students click, and it records their voice during class. So they turn it on in all their classes, and it records their voice, but it shows them exactly what they need to work on. This is another way that we track the progress of our students so that they can see, oh, my grammar, right? My perfect sentence rate, my vocabulary challenge, conversation challenge, grammar challenge. What proficiency level am I at right now based on my results? We get all this information the vocab tracker, the speech analyzer, and we create a personal plan for each student so that every 2 weeks they have a plan for them to focus on, right? So this helps a lot with their live classes. It helps a lot from going to new to recognized in a systemized, right? In una manera sistemática, but relaxed way so that they just go to class and they learn. So if this is something that interests you, my dear students, click the link down below and schedule a demo call, which is a demonstration call, where we can show you how everything works. And well, I hope you enjoyed this free masterclass on how to track your progress.